broadcasting, and silence your cell phones. Visitors can explore literature about our UU faith at the entrance and in the community room. You can also join our Zoom social time after the service. Discover more about our church, programs for children and youth, and weekly opportunities to connect with us on our website, uucommunitychurch.org. Located on Shaver Road in Portage, Michigan, our church on the ancestral lands of the Peoria and Potawatomi people proudly displays a rainbow flag and a Black Lives Matter sign, symbolizing our inclusive community dedicated to creating a just and sustainable world. We are a community on diverse spiritual journeys, and we enjoy hearing differing points of view from our minister, Reverend G. Ludwig McCartney, guest ministers, lay leaders, and guest speakers. Today, Reverend G will share stories about strong and determined UU women in honor of Women's History Month. Thanks to everyone contributing to this morning's service, our greeters, musicians, tech team, coffee host, and each of you. Your presence and contributions are truly appreciated. Now I have some announcements. Our game gathering group will meet on Saturday, April 4th at 1 p.m. for an afternoon of fun and fellowship. People of all ages and game playing abilities are welcome to attend. There is no need to register or RSVP. Just show up and let the games begin. We will be celebrating Easter at UUCC on Sunday, April 5th, with a multi-generational service led by Reverend G and Miriam. Easter bonnets and other fancy headwear are encouraged. There will be an egg hunt downstairs following the service. Eric Nelson will be hosting our next Mindful Living group meeting on Monday, April 6th at 7 p.m. on Zoom. All are welcome to join him for an hour of guided mindfulness practice, gentle community dialogue, and a chance to breathe, reset, and reconnect. Visit our website to register. Our annual giving campaign kicked off on March 1st. Our spiritual community is funded in large part by the generous contributions of our people like you. UUCC member Catherine Reagans Wilson will now join us to share her reasons for supporting UUCC.
Good morning. Thanks, Regina. When I was called by Marcia from Stewardship, and she asked if I would, stand up and share why I attend, why I've continued to attend over the 16 years that I've been a member, I was like, yeah, I've always seen this. Every year we do this. And I love when I got to be picked this time. So yeah, I'd love to share kind of my journey. I grew up with my mom as the choir director of several Methodist churches wherever we moved. Most of our churches was quite small, and she was a choir director, and my dad would always step in as the lay speaker if the minister was out on sabbatical or doing something. And very fond memories. My mom orchestrated these elaborate mother-daughter banquets, and there was summer church school and church camps. And so I really loved it. And the changing of the seasons, at least in the Methodist church, there was different colors. So they would change the background colors, and it was just, I absolutely loved it. However, I was in retail when I started, after I graduated from high school, and Sundays were the day you work. So I slowly kind of stopped attending church just through the fact that I was working all the time. And it wasn't till I moved to Portage, and I had a 3-year-old son, and he is adopted, and he was multiracial, and I was really wanting some place that he could get a really great religious education. And but I had this basic needs for a church at the time. I wanted it had to be at 10 o'clock. Heaven forbid it was earlier, and I had to put my little kid in his little 3-piece suit. I mean, and of course I had to get up in my ensemble. It had to be bikeable, and it really needed a strong education program for my son that I felt like was going to, speak to all the different religions and type of spirituality that were out there. So, so I was on this journey, and it wasn't till I heard an NPR, it was an interview with Reverend Forrest Church. He was a UU minister on the East Coast, and he was being interviewed because he just completed the book, Love and Death, My Journey Through the Valley of the Shadow. And his ideas really resonated with me, and I'd never heard of Unitarian Universalists. And and the book was written because he had been given the sentence of a terminal illness, and he really was at peace. And his wife said, well, me and your 2 sons aren't. So I need you to help us get up to where you are. And the book's written and how he went about doing that in the community in which he was a minister. It was lovely. So I get out, I hear this interview. I call my dad. I said, I don't understand. Why hadn't we always gone to a Unitarian Universalist church? It just sounds like it's really kind of how I was raised. And my dad said, well, they're not known for their choirs. So I said, okay. So I immediately Googled the closest Unitarian Universalist church. So that brings me to 2010, January 2010. It was the first Sunday of January. And I walked in, and a lot of you know Lynn Bartley was at the door. He was the greeter. And I walk in with my little kid, and I know exactly, Regina was sitting at the desk where Freya is. And I walk in, and Lynn goes, have you ever been to a Unitarian Universalist church? And I said, nope. I just heard an interview on NPR. And he goes, well, the first service is a non-service. And I'm like, really? He goes, we just do potluck and poems. I go, you had me at potluck. So it was Thoreau being read, and it was fellowship and food, and Regina and Eric checked the boxes of having their lovely children here. And I'm like, check, check. And it's, of course, 5 minutes from my house. And then, life gets lifey, and you make all these connections. And what I love about this church is it welcomes you not only on your spiritual journey and where you are in your mind, but where you are with your availability of time. And through the 16 years, I've had enough energy to help with craft shows and cookie walks. And then there are other times and other seasons where y'all don't see me for months, because of work. But the moment you walk through is as if you never left. And so for me, just, 4 months into my first visit, it was a no-brainer to be a membership and be a member and be committed. Because I have a philosophy, it's really important when you find something that speaks to you, is you come all the way in and you sit all the way down. And in doing that, the membership piece of being that invested was important to me. So I love being here, and thanks for letting me share.
Thank you, Catherine, for all you give to our church and your gifts. Pledge materials that explain how you can support UUCC's mission and activities for the next church year should have arrived in your mailbox already. If you did not receive a packet and would like one, please contact Ron Kroll. The deadline to return your pledge cards is today. We ask that you return them as soon as possible. We also hope you will join us on Saturday, April 11th at 5 p.m. for a celebration of generosity. There will be a delicious dinner and fun activities provided for us by the Stewardship Committee. All are welcome. Please RSVP to me by April 5th if you plan to attend. Now it's time to light the chalice. Today, globally, the Unitarian Universalists continue to light the chalice. As truth seekers, we pursue a resilient truth that withstands questioning and doubts. The flame serves as a constant reminder of our shared values, bringing them to life in our community. In the light of truth and warmth of love, we gather to seek, to sustain, and to share. Today's reading is from Standing Before Us, Unitarian Universalist Women in Social Reform, 1776 to 1936, edited by Dorothy Mae Emerson. The year was 1983. 28 years after the end of the Civil War and 27 years before white women in the United States would win the right to vote, and over 70 years before the Voting Rights Act secured the same rights for all Black women. The day was May 20th. The speaker was poet, activist, and Unitarian Frances Ellen Watkins Harper. You can see her picture on the screen. The speech was Women's Political Future. It was delivered before the World's Congress of Representative Women in Chicago, Illinois. This is what she shared. Today, women hold in their hands influence and opportunities. And with these, they have already opened doors that have been closed to others. By opening doors of labor, women has become a rival claimant for at least some of the wealth monopolized by her stronger brother. In the home, she is the priestess. In society, the queen. In literature, she is a power. In legislative halls, lawmakers have responded to her appeals and for her sake have humanized and liberalized their laws. The press has felt the impress of her hand. In the pews of the church, she constitutes the majority. The pulpit has welcomed her, and in schools, she has the blessed privilege of teaching children and youth. To her, it is apparently coming the added responsibility of political power, and what she now possesses should only be the means of preparing her to use the coming power for the glory of God and the good of mankind. For power without righteousness is one of the most dangerous forces in the world. O women of America, into your hands, God has pressed one of the sublimest opportunities that ever came into the hands of women of any race or people. It is yours to create a healthy public sentiment, to demand justice, simple justice, as the right of every race. Let the hearts of the women of the world respond to the song of the herald angels of peace on earth and goodwill to men.
Peaceful I am the pot of gold. When sunset burns and dies, you are my deepening skies. Give me your stars to hold.
All right, now you can. I'm Reverend G. I would like to say I'm delighted to be here, but I would rather be home in my bed. When I came in this morning, Nancy said, "Oh, you're here." Then she took a look at me. She said, "But it looks like you're in first gear." And I think that's a very accurate description. I am in first gear. So I'm back from LA. I have the much coveted high pressure headache. So what happens is if they seal the hole, the body is still overproducing CSF, cerebrospinal fluid, but now the hole is sealed. It has nowhere to go. The extra fluid has nowhere to go. It remains in the head. I literally can feel the plates, like, I'm sure they're not moving, but it feels like they're separating. It changes my vision because it's pushing on my eyeballs. So I'd be so disappointed if I didn't have this headache, but it's hell to go through it. But I'm here, and before I left, I meet with Miriam weekly. And I still will meet with Miriam weekly, even now that I'm back. And as you know, I don't usually write my talks, I don't usually write them down. And she said, this might be a good time to write it down. And I thought, nah, you know what, I'll just do that. So that day, I wrote down my talk, and that was a stroke of genius. But as you know, I also like to be very relevant and timely. And because of the times we live in, when you write a talk 2 weeks before you give it, it is way out of date. So I'm still gonna make parts of it up. Well, I never make them up, but all right. So let's get to it. And I'm glad you're here. Whether you're here or on the holy interwebs, it doesn't matter to me. I'm just glad that we get to spend time together, share space, and share heart. Oh my goodness, what's better than that? I was really hoping yesterday to go to the No Kings thing, but this is the best I can do, And you know, I think that what we cannot do, we won't do anyway. It's terrible if we don't do what we can do. What we cannot do, we won't do anyway. But if we don't do what we could do, that's tragedy. So this is all I can do. We are now a month into this war, totally illegal war with Iran. Congress has never been asked about it. We are clearly as far as I can tell, we are just doing this for Israel. I see no reason why we should be in this war, and I'm not the only one. There are analysts who are in agreement with me. And the Iranians closed the Strait of Hormuz. You see what that means when you go to fill up your tank. And that is destroying the economy as well. So every price you can think of is just going up because gas and diesel is figured into every single price that we pay. ICE is still active and doing horrible things in our communities. Families are still being separated. People who have lived here for decades, who have contributed to our lives, to our communities, to our economy. They are neighbors, colleagues. They're just taken. It appears to me that now we are committing war crimes to cover up sex crimes. The Justice Department violated its own law, the Epstein File Transparency Act, which Trump himself signed. And they violated this law by withholding files containing allegations against Trump of the sexual abuse of a minor. I mean, that's who's at the helm, you know. Somebody accused of pedophilia. An NPR investigation found 53 pages missing. Miraculously, these pages contain Trump's name. All of them. A bipartisan group of senators is now demanding a federal investigation. Like I said, it appears to me that we're committing war crimes to cover up sex crimes. And I named these things, and there's so much more. There's so much more. Like they are rewriting history. Like they're erasing history and they are rewriting it in their own image, however they would like to see. It's crazy. It's maddening. So I named these things not to depress you, though these things are depressing. I think we can agree. But because Women's History Month asks us to look at history honestly. And right now, we are making history. The only question is, what kind? What kind? So today, I wanted to tell you about women, many women, who faced moments not entirely unlike this. Women in our tradition, Unitarian and Universalist women, who looked at the world as it was and said, not on my watch. And I want to ask what they would say to us right now, today, this Sunday. Spoiler alert. I do not think they would tell us to stay home. And listen, I had to make a choice when I wrote this talk. Will I talk about a few women extensively, or will I talk about many women briefly? And I chose to talk about many women briefly. And my hope is that if you are inspired and if your curiosity is awakened, you go home and then look them up and read up on them extensively. It is worth it. I read up on them, and I had a hard time. How do you narrow down a remarkable life to 3 sentences? Like, how do you honestly do that? So just imagine the things that I left out. And I left out honest struggle. I left out so much humiliation that they had to go through. Just to name the achievements that we know them by. But Alpha and Omega does not fit in 2-3 sentences. So if you want all of it, please go home and read up on them on your time. In 1980, President Carter proclaimed the first National Women's History Week. In this proclamation, he wrote, "Too often, the women were unsung, and sometimes their contributions went unnoticed. But the achievements, leadership, courage, strength, and love of the women who built America were as vital as those of the men whose names we know so well." That week became a month because research at the time found that in history textbooks, fewer than 3% of content mentioned women. 3%. The women's movement had to fight just to get women's names into the story. That's where we started. Here in our tradition, the story is better, but we still don't tell it enough. So today, we tell a little bit of it. The pioneers. These are women who went first. The year is 1790. The new nation is finding its footing. And a Universalist woman named Judith Sargent Murray publishes an essay called On the Equality of the Sexes. She argues in 1790 that women and men are spiritual and intellectual equals. She wasn't asking, she was stating a fact. 1790. Fast forward to 1863. The Civil War is raging, and a young woman named Olympia Brown walks up to the Universalist General Convention and says, "I would like to be ordained." And they said, yes. Olympia Brown became the first woman ordained by any established religious denomination in the United States. She spent decades fighting for women's suffrage and was still giving speeches about voting rights at the age of 90. I would like to be that energetic at 90. Heck, I'd like to be that energetic now. But read up on her. Even though they said yes, they barely tolerated her. That's the reality. Barely tolerated her. Her walk was mostly uphill. Read up on it. She said, I have always had high hopes for the ballot. She lived to cast her own ballot after the 19th Amendment passed in 1920. She was 85. Then there was Margaret Fuller, Unitarian, transcendentalist, editor of the movement's journal, war correspondent for the New York Tribune. In 1845, she published the first American manifesto for women's equality, Woman in the 19th Century, before Seneca Falls. She was ahead of the convention. Ralph Waldo Emerson was famously intimidated by her. I find that delicious. Movers and shakers. Now look at the great social movements of the 19th century. Abolition, women's suffrage, prison reform, care for the mentally ill, and you will find you women at the center of nearly all of them. Susan B. Anthony, a Quaker who became Unitarian, was arrested in 1872 for the crime of voting in a presidential election. The judge did not let her speak at her own trial. She gave a speech anyway. But read up on her. This is nothing compared to what she had gone through. Read up on her. Lucy Stone, Unitarian, abolitionist, first woman in Massachusetts to earn a college degree, became famous. And whenever it is a first woman to earn a college degree, you know how much ridicule she must have gone through. Read up on it, and then you will know how much. She became famous as the first woman in America to keep her own last name after marriage. We all should have. She and her husband turned their wedding ceremony into a political statement. Respect. Frances Ellen Watkins Harper, who attended both an AME, American Methodist Episcopalian, and a Unitarian church. She was a poet, novelist, abolitionist, and suffragist. A free-born Black woman in antebellum America, she lectured across the country at great personal risk. Once, when a conductor refused to accept her fare on a Philadelphia streetcar, she threw her money on the floor and walked off. Icon energy. And then, of course, Regina just read from her writing. Dorothea Dix, Unitarian, almost single-handedly reformed the treatment of people with mental illness in America. She toured jails and almshouses, wrote a devastating report to the Massachusetts legislature, and spent 40 years lobbying state after state to build proper hospitals. She helped establish 32 of them. in the Civil War. She became superintendent of Army nurses. Mary Livermore, Universalist, was known as the Queen of the Platform. She organized Civil War relief efforts, led the Massachusetts Women Suffrage Association, and lectured to enormous crowds for 25 years. She was, in the words of one biographer, unstoppable. Florence Nightingale, born to Unitarian parents, founded modern nursing. She also happened to be a pioneering statistician. Okay, I practice this one and I'm ruining it. Statistician. Thank you. Statistician. You'll never forget that Florence Nightingale was the first statistician who invented a form of the pie chart to visualize hospital mortality data. She used data to save lives before data visualization was a thing. A Unitarian woman basically invented the infographic. I want that on a t-shirt. Now another group, scientists, scholars, teachers. How are you doing? Too much? Too many women? Keep going? Yeah. Good. That's the spirit. Cecilia Payne Gapashkin, a Unitarian who taught Sunday school. She's one of my favorites. Who taught Sunday school at First Parish in Lexington, Massachusetts, determined that hydrogen is the most abundant element in the universe. Her doctoral thesis was called undoubtedly the most brilliant PhD thesis ever written in astronomy. She also became the first woman to receive tenure and chair a department in Harvard's Faculty of Arts and Sciences. The universe is mostly hydrogen. A UU RE, Sunday school teacher, figured that out. Take all the time to let it sink in. Okay. So Payne, Payne, dash, G-A, P as in Paul, O, S, C as in Cecil, H-K-I-N. You're welcome. Read up on her because she had such a hard time getting an education. Even though she was absolutely brilliant, so much more brilliant than her male counterparts, and still she struggled to get an education, but she was relentless, absolutely relentless, and eventually, she got one and ended up being the chair of a department at Harvard. Clara Barton, raised Universalist, founded the American Red Cross, and spent decades getting the United States to sign the Geneva Convention. Somehow, we are still signatories to it. I don't think, maybe he hasn't noticed. Lydia Maria Child, Unitarian, wrote one of the first comprehensive anti-slavery books in America. Wrote the first comprehensive anti-slavery books in American history and edited abolitionist newspaper when the governor of Virginia wrote to her suggesting her activism was unladylike. She published both his letter and her reply in the newspaper with satisfaction. In the late 19th and early 20th century, a group of women Unitarian ministers, known as the Iowa Sisterhood, fanned out across the Midwest, Iowa, Nebraska, Colorado, South Dakota, Michigan, Wisconsin, and Illinois. They went to places that male ministers wouldn't go. Small towns, frontier communities. They built congregations. They expanded our movement into the heartland. They went where the men wouldn't, which is, come to think, a recurring theme in this talk. Now, here is where history comes closest to today. Viola Gregg Liuzzo. She was a UU mother of 5 from Detroit in 1965 when she heard about the violence in Selma, Alabama, about state troopers on the Edmund Pettus Bridge. She got in her car and drove south. She helped transport marchers. On March 25th, 1965, the night the final march ended, she was shot and killed by Ku Klux Klan members while driving on the highway. She knew the risk. She went anyway. What Viola Liuzzo understood, what all of these women understood, is that there are moments in history when the private citizen is called to act publicly. When staying home, staying quiet, staying safe is itself a choice with consequences. She saw the state brutalizing people on a bridge. She did not ask, "Is this my problem?" She asked, "What can I do?" So, what would these women say to us today? I think Olympia Brown, who fought for women's suffrage for 60 years, who was still speechifying at 90, would look at the erosion of democratic norms and say, "You have no idea how hard people fought for what you are at the risk of losing. Get moving." I think Dorothea Dix, who spent 40 years fighting for the dignity of people locked up and forgotten, would look at ICE raids tearing families from their homes and recognize the pattern immediately. Power preying on the vulnerable, banking on the silence of the comfortable. I think Lydia Maria Child, who published the governor's condescending letter alongside with her own withering reply, would have something to say about a president who signed a transparency law and then violated it to protect himself from allegations of abusing a child. she would not be polite about it. I think Viola Liuzzo, who gave her life, would say to us, what exactly are you waiting for? And I think Judith Sargent Murray, who wrote in 1790 that every human being has inherent equality of worth, would recognize the theological stakes. When you tell an immigrant family that they do not belong, when you drop bombs on civilians in Iran, when you protect the powerful and expose the victims, you are making a theological claim. You are saying some lives matter more than others. That is the claim our faith tradition was built to oppose. We are the religious home of rebels and visionaries. So, beloveds, we are living inside a chapter that future generations will study. And they will ask, as we ask about every era, what did people do? Who spoke? Who acted? Who stayed silent? Who were the collaborators? The women in this sermon were not saints. They were not superhuman. They were people who believed deeply, theologically, in the inherent worth and dignity of every person. And they let that belief cost them something. Margaret Fuller wrote her manifesto in a country that refused to let women vote. Olympia Brown built a congregation in a denomination that barely tolerated her. Viola Liuzzo drove into Alabama knowing the risk. They did not wait for safety. They did not wait for permission. They acted in accordance with their faith. The UU theologian Thandeka wrote, one at a time, in personal relationships, 10 at a time in covenant groups, hundreds at a time in our congregations, hundreds of thousands at a time in our religious movement, millions at a time as we take our commission deeper and deeper into humanity's heart as a justice-loving people who will transform the world. That transformation is not happening somewhere else. It is happening here in our time, in our communities. The war, the raids, the covered up files, the tanking economy, the silencing of accountability, These are not abstract. They are landing on real people. Many of them just outside this door. Some maybe in here. These extraordinary women did not inherit a world better than we did. Some of them inherited a much worse one. What they had was each other, a faith worth living, and a stubborn conviction that their action mattered, as do ours. On this Women's History Month, let us honor them, not just with gratitude, but with action. Let us be the people they would recognize. The people, when this era is studied, are remembered for showing up. May we be worthy of their example. And so it is. And thank you.
À tout âme qui pleure, à tout péché qui passe, je me sens deux étoiles, mes mains pleines de grâce. Il n'est péché qui vive qu'on ne mouille pas il n'est d'âme qui meure qu'on ne mouille pleurer. Et si l'amour s'égare au sentier d'ici-bas, c'est l'arme retrouve et ne s'égare pas.
Now it's time for our offering. Now we enter a sacred moment, not of obligation, but of opportunity. The offering is more than a ritual. It is a reflection of our values, a gesture of hope, and a commitment to this beloved community. Each gift, whether large or small, sustains the light we kindle, the welcome we extend, and the work we do in the world. Look at the screen for ways to give, and our ushers are here to collect your offering. In giving, we affirm our shared dreams to build a world rooted in love.
I used to think I had to have my own way, could do everything on my own, living my life like a one one woman play, feeling confused and alone. Still I held on tight to the life that I had, till it wasn't the life I remembered. Finally admitted I hadn't a clue, opened my arms in surrender. And I made room for grace. I just stepped aside, opened up a space. Now the blessings arrive every day, since I made room for grace. I want to live without making demands, asking for help when I need it, being happy just doing the best that I can. When I stumble, I won't be defeated, since I made room for grace. I just stepped aside, opened up a space. Now the blessings arrive every day, since I made room for grace. If I had insisted on all that I wanted, I'd see I'd have sold myself short. But when I stopped resisting, I got what I needed and so much more. Since I made room for grace, I just stepped aside, opened up a space. Now the blessings arrive, since I made room for grace. I just stepped aside, opened up a space. Now the blessings arrive every day, since I made room for grace. Since I made room for grace.
As we extinguish the chalice, let us remember to keep the flame awake and alive in our souls, and let the light of the chalice bind us together, showing us the way. We extinguish this flame, but not the light of truth, the warmth of community, or the fire of commitment. These we carry in our hearts until we are together again.
Oy. Beloved, go do all that you can. What you cannot do, you won't do anyway, but do all that you can. And so it is.